Welcome to Local Distortion. On this podcast, I'll be talking to up-and-coming independent musicians and bands. I am your host, Daniel Kirk. On this episode, we have a very special international guest from the USA. She is part of the Southern Ohio, Northern Kentucky bluegrass country music scene. Her songs have taken her as far west as California and as far south as Florida. She is Maria Corelli. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for giving up your time for being on my podcast.
Oh yeah, thanks for having me.
Let's start first with how we know each other, because a lot of people are going to think, this is a bit random. You know, you on this podcast and me being over here in England and you over there. So I'm just going to quickly explain to everyone who's listening,
For sure.
you know, how we know each other really. So we met roughly around 4 years ago, I think now. That seems a long time ago.
It does. It seems like forever ago.
Yeah, and I was visiting my family in Cincinnati. We were introduced through my cousin, and we went on a camping trip to Red River Gorge.
Yeah.
Which is a beautiful part of Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
Where is that near? For people who don't know.
If you can, so it's kind of in the Midwest of the United States, I would say, but it's closer to northern Kentucky, but just about an hour and a half to 2 hours away from Cincinnati, where I live, which is in Ohio, which is very southern Ohio. So when you came and visited, we all just took the short drive down to the Red River Gorge, which is one of the most beautiful places in the world, in my opinion, and some of the best climbing in the world too. But yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah, we didn't do any climbing though. We just did a lot of hiking, and we stayed in a log cabin over a long weekend. And then we also hung out, I think it was about 2 years ago now, when I came back to Cincinnati. We did a lot of, the normal things you do in the city. So you have Over the Rhine, which is a really, how would you describe it? Well, these days, it's a very,
Yeah, it's kind of booming. It's starting to get a lot more developed down there. A few years ago, like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, if you wouldn't want to walk down there by yourself, I'll put it that way. And since then, it's actually gained a lot more business, and a lot of young people have been moving in down there, and yeah.
So there's a lot of restaurants and bars there, and
yeah.
So it's very centered towards the young people.
Yeah, for
hipsters.
Sure. Oh, yeah, a lot of like music venues too. So places like that, nightlife is booming.
Yeah, it was awesome, and we also went to Skyliner, which
the world famous
Skyliner. So could you explain that to our UK listeners?
Yeah, well, so Skyliner is famous to Cincinnati, and it's chili, essentially. It is a very different kind of chili than probably what you're thinking. It's its own recipe. It includes like cinnamon and brown sugar, and it essentially is really like liquidy, like brown chili. When you go there, you get like, you know, there are 3 ways and 4 ways, which are like noodles with chili on top of it, and then like a mound of cheese on top of that too.
So
and
much cheese.
I know, it's kind of what they're famous for, is just putting like a pound of cheese on top of it.
But it's amazing. It works.
I'm interested in hearing what you all thought of the Skyliner chili the first time you tasted it. What did you think about it?
I was just scared by the mountain of cheese more than anything. I've had, the chili dog meal before, but never with that amount of cheese. But, it works definitely. And I really enjoyed it.
We're really healthy down here in Cincinnati.
Yeah, it's not a daily meal, I don't think.
To some it is.
Yeah. So I also saw your previous band play when I was over there at the famous Crow's Nest as well.
Yeah.
Which is sort of a second home to you as well.
Yeah. It's kind of like, it's really big amongst the folk scene here in Cincinnati, Ohio. So if you're playing folk music, then you know what the Crow's Nest is.
I think I got my first taste for bluegrass music watching some local bands at the Comet, which is in Northside, I believe.
Hmm.
So that was the first time I'd really been introduced to that type of music. It's different because we definitely don't have that style over here in England. You know, we have country and folk music, but bluegrass is obviously its own thing, and it has its own roots there in America. I was hoping you'd kind of be able to, in the best way possible for you, try and explain to people who are not familiar with the genre what it is.
So yeah, that's actually a great question, and it's something I asked myself not too long ago, you know, getting into this kind of music. I guess I'll like really quickly go over like what I started on, which is why I still feel like a newcomer to this music too, and still learning about what bluegrass is as well. But like I started out with like punk music, and then went to you know, like ska and just that kind of like harder, more electric stuff. And then slowly I found my way like through traditional Irish music and through singer-songwriter, through folk. I then found my way to bluegrass, which is something that I'm still feel very new at, but it's been just an interesting discovery too, because I don't know about you all out there, but I personally feel the second you hear bluegrass music, you know, you can't not like it. I don't know, I just can't imagine anyone not feeling happy when they hear bluegrass music. And you know, the bit that I know about it is it kind of started with Bill Monroe, who they call the father of bluegrass music, who played mandolin and kind of started out the whole phenomenon of bluegrass, and then bands from there emulated his style, and it became a whole thing. You know, it's a lot centered around banjo, guitar, mandolin, fiddle, upright bass. Those are going to be like kind of the main instruments that you see. And a lot about bluegrass is doing a lot of like picking like individual notes and taking solos. So in a traditional bluegrass tune, like if you were to sit around like play like, you know, Salt Creek is the name of a bluegrass tune. If a whole group of people were to sit around and play it, everyone's going to go around and take their own solo on it, essentially, on their instrument. And so, yeah, that's kind of like, in a nutshell, like bluegrass.
Could you recommend 3 artists or bands that the listeners could check out?
Yeah, totally. So if you're looking for like hardcore bluegrass music, I would, definitely Bill Monroe, who I mentioned before. And then Ralph Stanley is a huge one, very iconic in bluegrass. And then I'd also like to suggest a woman named Rose Maddox. And she in particular to me is awesome because she plays all the traditional bluegrass stuff, but then mixes in like electric guitar. It sounds weird, but it's great to just, you know, when you're listening to a kind of music, I personally think it's best if you just get like, not like straight on, like search for things that you like and search for the stuff that you like in that music. And
yeah, definitely.
And she's just this like awesome, like strong woman who just like kills it on bluegrass tunes. For me, it's very inspirational to hear a woman, you know, playing all that traditional, wonderful, iconic music. I think it's important to encourage people to also listen to these women who were just like huge in the roots scene as well and influenced other people to come after them.
Yeah, awesome. Definitely. So where can people find their music? Are they on YouTube or?
I would just look like everywhere you possibly can. I know that they're going to be on like, you know, iTunes and Pandora and Spotify, places like that, whatever you prefer. Even if you just like look up like old bluegrass like compilations, like that's a great way to start too. And you can get just like little bits of all different types of artists. That's how I started. My mom bought me this, she got me this compilation, a bluegrass compilation, and it had all the staple bluegrass songs, like, you know, like Rocky Top and Uncle Pen and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's kind of what got me into it. It just was like, how can anyone not like this music? It's so upbeat and wonderful. And
yeah, definitely it is. And that's the aim of this podcast is, you know, to do something a bit different, to shine a light on a genre of music that probably, you know, isn't that well known globally. I'm sure in America it's huge, definitely.
Yeah.
but over here it's kind of becoming known, and there is
Yeah.
a small following to it. But yeah, I think there definitely needs to be more light shone on the genre.
As do I.
Okay, so now we're going to play one of two tracks we have of
Mhm.
yours. Would you like to introduce it for us?
Sure. So this song is an a cappella number that my friend, my really dear friend Amy Alvey and I sang, and we initially heard it from. If any of you out there are into this kind of music, I'm sure you all have heard Willie Watson's album, who was a former member of Old Crow Medicine Show. He has a solo album out called I believe it's Folk Singer Volume 1 or something like that. And this is a tune off of his album, and I really enjoyed this album because it is becoming more like mainstream in this kind of field over here in America. And like if anyone listens to folk music there, they have already listened to this album. He's kind of bringing all these old songs, old like public domain, just no one knows really who wrote them, and bringing them into light and kind of putting a new modern spin, his own spin on them. So this is our version of that song called Long John Dean.
Did you hear his story about Long John Dean? A bold bank robber from Bowling Green. They put him in the jailhouse the other day, and late last night made his getaway. He had long gone from old Kentucky, long gone, got away lucky. He had long gone, that's what I mean, long gone from Bowling Green. They offered him board to bring him back. They even put the bloodhounds on his track. But the doggone bloodhounds lost his scent, and nobody knows where Long John went. He had long gone from old Kentucky, long gone, got away lucky. He had long gone, that's what I mean, long gone from Bowling Green. I never will forget till the day I die. I played a game of love with a woman held high. It's heads she wins and tails I lose. Well, she played the ace and I had the deuce. I long gone from old Kentucky, long gone, got away lucky. I long gone, that's what I mean, long gone from Bowling Green. I long gone from old Kentucky, long gone, got away lucky. I long gone, that's what I mean, long gone from Bowling Green.
Let's talk about your last tour you just came back from a few weeks ago. This was you and your friend Amy performing as Wago Lily. Tell us how it came about, where it started, and where you ended up.
So, the song that you just heard, as I mentioned before, it was Amy Alvey and I, and our band name was Wago Lily, and it was just us two traveling around the southwest of the United States, so kind of more the desert region of the United States. So we met through a mutual friend of ours when I was in my former band, Mamadrones, a bluegrass band out of Cincinnati. We were looking for a fiddle player, and she plays fiddle, and so we got her on board, and we toured around the Midwest for about a month. And quickly, Amy and I figured that we realized that we just loved each other, and we quickly became best friends. And she is an amazing fiddle player, a great songwriter. She writes killer songs. If you check Wago Lily stuff out on the internet, you'll totally see what I mean. She was doing a lot of climbing when I met her, going to gyms, and when we were touring around, just to kind of keep fit while we were on tour. It's easy to eat bad and not get a lot of sleep and kind of lose track of your health. So she would take me rock climbing. One day we were rock climbing while on this tour with Mamadrones. This was probably almost about a year ago now. And we were climbing, and I kind of turned to her and I said, you know, it would be really cool if you and I did just like a tour, and we went to all these like climbing destinations that we have always wanted to go, but why don't we support ourselves with our music along the way? We would be essentially working by like playing shows at night, but then we could go climb during the day, and camp and just essentially fuel our trip with our music. Yeah. And she 100% agreed immediately. And she's like, don't joke around with me, Maria. And so about a month later, we already had essentially when we wanted to go planned out and a rough idea of where we wanted to go. So on the trip, we went to these different awesome places in the Southwest, Southern California, Nevada, Colorado, Utah, New Mexico, and we went climbing all around there. We picked the spots initially where we wanted to climb, and then from there, then we, like near the places that we are climbing destinations, then we reached out to venues and sent some high definition photos of us, sent videos of us that we filmed, sent music, then venues, then judge if they wanted our music at their place. And a lot of them did say yes, and so we built a little tour off of this for a month, and then I flew out there to meet her, and then we drove back to Cincinnati. So it essentially was like a cross-country trip on the way back. Yeah.
You guys had a blog, didn't you? And you pretty much blogged pretty much every time you were in a different location, posted some amazing pictures of the scenery and a couple of the people you met as well.
Oh, okay.
waygoLilyblog.wordpress.com.
Yeah, there we go. That's it.
So everyone should check out that because, the pictures are amazing. And, you write a little description of what you were up to. Mm-hmm. And, it was really awesome to sort of follow that while you were doing that tour as well. Tell us some of your highlights.
Yeah, of course. One big highlight for me was just, if you all have ever heard of it, it's Arches National Park in Moab. So Moab is located in Utah, which is essentially like West United States, and it is so beautiful. The land formations that are out there are just incredible, and there are these giant arches made of like sandstone and different like composite of rock and just like different like formations that happened. It was just incredible. That was probably one of my favorite places just because of the sheer beauty of it. And I also love the desert. The desert is one of my favorite places, hands down. And it's just so serene, and the colors out there are beautiful. We also went to Yosemite National Park and played like a house show there in the mountains just above the Yosemite Valley, which was so beautiful. And I can't even put into words. We tried to put into words how beautiful it was on the blog, but you all will just have to go visit there someday because there are just these towering cliff faces and waterfalls everywhere, and just like green and giant valleys that come into V's, and where, a river is winding through the valley. It's just so incredible. And our music was able to take us to these places. And then we climbed also at a lot of these places. So we got to just be one like with the rock that formed those places, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, I was so jealous when you got to Yosemite, because that's like on my bucket list to go there.
You'll go there someday.
Yeah, maybe we'll go back. Like, yeah. But I was going to say, like, if you need a driver next time, I will volunteer to drive.
All right, sounds good.
I was so jealous. Like, all those places you went to, I was just like, I really want to go there.
Oh, you're totally hired, Dan.
Thank you. But yeah, that just sounds amazing. And obviously, check out the blog for all the pictures and everything else. So what was the best show that you played?
Oh gosh.
Or to the biggest audience, maybe.
One of the best shows and the most attentive and most wonderful audience that we had. They're all across the board. They all were great. I mean, anyone who we got to play music for was just quite a treat. But probably the best one was we played this one in Salt Lake City. It was at a house show at these two wonderful hosts' houses. It was a friend of Amy's, and they opened their house to us and essentially created this house show for us as traveling musicians. And it's kind of like with like, you know, amongst like the punk shows and, you know, underground stuff going on, there are a lot of house shows. House shows are essentially what fuel it, in my opinion, because it's so hard to go out there and make a living wage out in bars. And unfortunately, that's like what a lot of us have to do as musicians here, at least here in the U.S. I'm not 100% sure how it is over there.
It's all really small venues that are just empty rooms, basically built into pubs. Yeah, it's definitely tough for a lot of bands over here. But like you were saying about the house show.
Yeah,
I think that should become a thing over here. Like, that'd be amazing.
And I don't want to get into too many specifics, but we made well over like what we felt was enough for us to continue doing what we wanted to do, which we were so gracious for. Every single person in that room, there were probably 50 people in the room, and every single person was listening so intently and enjoyed it so much. And it was like a built-in crowd, like because the people were invited, like they knew, or because of the people who hosted it, like all the people who came were their friends and knew that these people had like a taste in music that would coincide with what they liked, and therefore they like loved the performance that we put on, and it was awesome. And we made a lot of new friends there too, and we love everyone in Salt Lake and everyone else who we met along the way too.
There's a few, I think there's one or two maybe performances of you guys on tour on YouTube, which people can find, I believe.
Yeah, there's one we did a concert window, which is essentially you broadcast to whoever, like all over the world, whoever wants to tune in to your show. We broadcasted it from a climber's hangout spot in Orangeville, Utah, which is Joe's Valley, a great climbing spot for any of you climbers out there. It's like really well known in Utah, so in Orangeville, Utah. And we did a concert window. That's the highlight from that is on YouTube. You can find a little clip of that. There's footage of us playing in the mountains in Yosemite. Actually, on our Facebook page, you can probably scroll through our videos and find us jamming out there too, with a beautiful mountain backdrop, which is just visually awesome too.
Yeah, I think that's the one I've seen. Now, your previous band, the Mamadrones, were nominated twice for a Cincinnati Entertainment Award for Best Bluegrass Band for 2015 and 16. Yeah. What were some of the highlights of playing and touring with this band?
Mamadrones, that was a really fun project that I started with my friend Andrew McFeeters, who's also a Cincinnati native, and he plays banjo, mandolin, some guitar, and he also writes music too. That was a lot of fun. Some of the highlights of playing with Mamadrones is just I love being in a group, just bluegrass music, and it mixed in with like folk and originals, and we had a lot of fun tours. We built some fishing into some of our tours. Like Andrew really loved to fly fish, and he shared that love with the other band members too, and so it was a lot of fun to just kind of explore all the different parts of the country like with that band. We also went out to Colorado too, probably last year around this time or a little bit before. We went out to Colorado, which was a lot of fun, and took a camper van out there, like a 1984 Dodge Explorer Class B with like big trailer behind it, and just kind of lived out of that for probably about 2 weeks, I think, and just played all over Colorado. And they love bluegrass out there, so it was great to be able to bring that to that part of the country, which is out west as well.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now that you're sort of back home and you're sort of in between projects.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any future plans to maybe start another band, or are you just going to play some solo shows? What's on the horizon for you next?
Yeah. So, I actually am starting, my own project as Maria Corelli. I am currently working on a full band sound, and it's going to be more country, with bluegrass influence to it. Singer-songwriter, country, bluegrass influence, stuff like that. And, kind of a more like full, like, dare I say, electric band sound. So gonna start doing that. I'm playing a couple festivals this summer already on the, one is coming up here June 11th here in Cincinnati called Sailor Park Sustains. And it's a wonderful festival that actually one of my friends puts on. And I'm going to be playing like with a full band there. And then solo shows when I don't play with that full band. So writing some new songs, getting some new material out there. So keep on the lookout too for, I'm in the process of recording a new album as Maria Carrelli too. So that'll be fun.
How can people find your music if obviously they can't make it to shows and gigs?
Sure. I usually use like sites like Bandcamp. If you've heard of Bandcamp.
I have not.
Okay, so I can't tell if it's like just, I don't know if it's a big thing over there or not, but
we just have Spotify and iTunes and.
Okay, so Bandcamp, a lot of like DIY music artists doing their own thing. They don't have a label yet. They're just doing their own thing. They'll have a lot of stuff on Bandcamp. There are lots of sites like that. There's another one called SoundCloud. I'm not on that one. I'm on Bandcamp and I'm on Facebook. I'm not on like iTunes or Spotify yet, but hopefully, I'll explore those options, see how I feel about they compensate their artists and treat, and then see if I am wanting to put my music on there, which is exciting because it'll mean that it will be a bigger like platform to have people come listen to my music and stuff like that.
Definitely. And also there is obviously videos of you performing with all of your previous bands on YouTube. Basically, you can find some tracks on there. And also you did say you're not on YouTube, but I found a channel which had the same name as you, and there was some cover songs on there.
There are videos up there that other people have uploaded that I can't do anything with, so they're just up there.
Oh, I wasn't talking about those videos.
But anyway,
I was talking about your Josh Ritter covers.
Yeah. Oh, I'm cool with those. That's fine.
Yeah.
I love Josh Ritter.
Yeah, and they're really good. Some of them have got quite a lot of views as well. I don't know if you've been keeping track of them, but yeah. One's got over a couple of thousand views, one of the covers. So,
oh, wow.
Yeah. You might be owed some royalties maybe, so...
No, it's probably Josh Ritter who's owed royalties. But yeah, he's actually, speaking of, he's one of my big influences. Like, he's a singer-songwriter.
Yeah.
I think he's really big in, like, England, too.
Yeah,
or Ireland. He's also big in Ireland as well.
Yeah, I think I've heard of him. Yeah, I think you've talked about him before.
Probably from me.
I know of him.
Because I'm obsessed.
What advice would you give up-and-coming musicians who are just starting out?
It's a really good question. I have a lot of advice that I'd probably want to give them, but
and maybe things not to do that maybe you've done and you wish, I shouldn't have done that. And now you know because of you've been doing this a long time.
Maybe a lot of this might sound cheesy, but it's so true. It's just like do what you love and what makes you happy. And if you're making music for yourself, then that's all that really matters. Like if you love the music you put out, then other people will. And the recognition, if you want that, will come. If you love what you do and it comes from a place that's genuine, then people are gonna love it. And don't ever like give up and like there are gonna be tons of times when Like there have been so many times when I'll get done with a show, maybe like 4 different times, or based on something someone said to me, or how I played at a show, or a crowd's reaction or something. You know, maybe it wasn't as favorable as I thought it was going to be. I would sit there and think, why am I doing this? Like seriously question what I was doing with my life. But now I just don't. I don't question it because it's something that I love doing. And there's so many people out there that are just unhappy because they think that they should be doing something else. But
Yeah.
another bit of advice, super quick, is know what you're worth too. You know,
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
and that's what I've been getting into more recently, is as a DIY like artist. Like I book myself, I do my merch, I do everything, like write my songs. I'm my own security guard. I'm just kidding. Not really, but even with all of that, like you put so much into it, don't be afraid to ask for a guarantee that you feel is fair, and feel confident in their level of skill and what they can ask for it. So like that goes for any bands. And when venues, like this happens all the time, like venues know that they can, like certain bands will play venues for free or tips, which ruins like guarantees for anyone trying to make a living off of it. Because then, I will go to a venue, I'll be like, I need a guarantee of $150 for like an hour or something, and
Yeah.
and like they might be like, that's ridiculous, we can't do that. And then it's like, well, then you don't really want me. Then you don't really want my music if you're not willing to pay that. So yeah, so knowing like what you have to offer and knowing what you're worth and being confident in going forward with that. That's a little long-winded, but
No, that's some really, really good advice. So that
Yeah.
should definitely help some people out. Have you ever been tempted to write and play a more popular style of music? Obviously, you're talking about, you've had those moments when you're just, why am I doing this? And
Mhm.
you could, I'm sure you could do it if you put your mind to it. But obviously,
Yeah.
you were trying to do a certain thing, and that's what you're passionate about. That's what you love.
Yeah.
But just, have you ever been tempted to maybe go another way with your music?
I think that the pull of that is there all the time. Probably every single gig. Like someone comes up to me and they're like, "You should go on The Voice. Have you heard of The
Yeah,
Voice?"
yeah,
Or before that, it was American Idol, and they're like,
yeah,
"You know what? You would be perfect for American Idol." It's like, and I'm not knocking anyone who wants to go down that road, and I think that's awesome. But like with those shows, it is important to recognize that those people a lot of times are just singing other people's songs and being rewarded for how well they do other people's songs, and what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to create my own songs, and that the love of that, and then like what is fueling me is enough to like keep me from wanting to do The Voice or American Idol or like
yeah,
or go a more like a pop route. Like I could write like a pop song, but do I want to? Not really, because it would feel ingenuine. It would feel like not me, because that's not like what I want to write necessarily.
yeah. And I think if you're playing your own music, you're writing your own songs, it's a lot more of a bigger payoff when,
Yeah, for
people
sure.
take to your own music, because
Yeah.
that's going to be so much more satisfying for you, because you've done that all yourself. You,
Yeah, of
you
course.
haven't got someone writing your songs or producing your sound, telling
Yeah.
you how to sound, or
Yeah,
it's
and
it's
like
just all you.
yeah, and that's like a really good point that you say that, because when I hear like my in my car, I turn something on and it's like a woman that inspires me, and if I know that she wrote her own songs, is so much more satisfying to hear that than like Beyonce, for that matter. Like she does write some of her songs, but she also doesn't write others, and like Taylor Swift. Everyone likes to hate Taylor Swift, and like she may have her songs written for her now, but like the way that she got started, she wrote her own songs. Like
Yeah,
she took her own songs into the studio. She knew how to play guitar. Like she did all that herself, and I think that's super inspiring, and I think that's what little girls like now need to see, instead of like just being like sex symbols, you know. It's
Yeah,
like
definitely.
instead of aspiring to be pretty or aspiring to be like someone's wife, you know, like, and that's okay, like, but like a lot of like women these days like feel like that's all they can be, if you know, even if they want to do something else, like go on a little rant there, but
No,
I think
that's good. Yeah, it's definitely bringing up some interesting points. But yeah, it's nice that you're so driven to do your own thing. So you briefly mentioned Beyonce there, and this will probably
do you need me to sing a Beyonce song? Because I'll do it. I'm just
I might actually. Yeah. On my last podcast, I asked the band I was interviewing about their guilty pleasures. So
yeah.
songs or bands that they may be a bit afraid to admit that they secretly love. So
Yeah.
obviously you would probably say Beyonce. But
Yeah.
who else? Who else would you say is a guilty pleasure that you're kind of embarrassed that you like?
Well, let's see. All right, there's Beyonce. I definitely like
Beyonce number one.
Beyonce is number one, always. I'll kind of like, my number two would be like 90s R&B. You know, like Usher.
Destiny's Child,
and,
basically. More Beyonce.
yeah, more Beyonce. No, I used to love like, and this is really what started me singing, was like 90s like pop R&B, like Usher and like Alicia Keys, like just some great stuff. Like,
So you
I
still
don't
belt
know.
that out from time to time?
Of course I do.
Yeah, just put that. Yeah.
You know, like
Put that
just
on loud.
when Usher, what was that song that Usher sang that was just, it was like Burn or something? That was like my inspiration for singing ever.
Yeah.
It was, how did it go? It was like, it's getting hard for me to say this, but it's coming from the heart. Been a long time coming since we've been da-da-da. I really want to work this out. Don't think I'll change. I know, but you know, think it's best to go our separate ways. Tell me why I should stay in this relationship when I'm hurt, baby. I ain't happy, baby. Oh my gosh, so good. That stuff was just like,
That was amazing.
that was like my 6th grade song. That was what got me started.
Yeah. That's awesome. That was a good answer.
And then I guess the third one would be, I want to say Steely Dan. I love Steely Dan, but a lot of people would make fun of me for that. And you know what? It's actually not a guilty pleasure. I don't feel that guilty about them.
You're proud.
I'm very proud to love the Dan. The Dan is awesome. So anyway, yeah, I wanted to give them a little shout out too.
So this isn't the first podcast you've been on. I think you've been on a few, but
Yeah.
probably someone who UK listeners will know is that the famous Jerry Springer, who is also from Cincinnati, has
Yeah.
his own podcast, and you've been on that podcast before.
I actually work at the Folk School Coffee Parlor, where he does his podcast out of every Tuesday night.
Oh, so he does them in there.
Yeah, so he
okay.
like in the back room, like, and it's a tiny place. It's like the maximum occupancy is like 50.
Yeah.
And so he does a podcast every night, and I know you're thinking there's probably a lot of like, you're probably envisioning a lot of like hair pulling and like boobs.
It's not a podcast version of his 90s TV show for the listeners out there.
It is not. Again, we're going to stress that it's not.
Yeah.
It's actually called Tales, Tunes, and Tomfoolery. And it showcases like folk musicians, a lot in the local Cincinnati area, because Cincinnati, for some reason, is just like saturated with great music, especially
definitely.
along the vein of like folk and bluegrass and old, you know, a little bit of old time stuff like that. So you can go on like his website and hear back to like my, you know, when Mamadrones was on. I was on solo as well. So
Did you play some songs on there? Or were you just being interviewed?
yeah, but both. A lot of the podcast, how it's set up, he'll like start out with some jokes, and then they talk about like some political issues going on. They're very liberal, so the motto is "Liberals always win," and then they kind of ask the musician a few questions and have them play a couple songs, and then every podcast ends with the band or the artist taking the audience out on Leadbelly's Irene Goodnight, which is a really big staple, like folk song that was by Leadbelly, one of the great artists of that time. So
I never thought I'd be doing this, but I'm plugging Jerry Springer's podcast. Let's go and check it out. So before we end the show, we're going to play your second song.
Mm-hmm.
Can you introduce it for us, please?
Sure. So this song is a song that I wrote. It's called Back Again. And this one we recorded down in Nashville. And I did want to give a shout out to the people who are wonderful musicians who are playing on it. The bass that you hear is Brad Tucker from Nashville, Indiana. He's one of my friends down there who is just such a talented musician. Just killer guitar player. You'll hear his awesome work on bass on this song. And then the banjo is Andrew McFeeters, who I mentioned before. And then on fiddle, we have Amy Alvey, who I mentioned previously in the podcast, who was in Wago Lily with me, and she's on fiddle. And this is a song that I wrote called Back Again.
Will you treat me bad, treat me mean, but you take me places that I've never been, though I should be on my way. If you're ever coming back my way, come on honey, don't you make me wait for your love again. Now I've had all the heartache that I can endure, and it picks me up and puts me down, then leaves me on the floor. And I hate to act a fool when you treat me like you do, but just a look from you could have me running back again. Now I had me a good man, then you came through like an old freight train, barreling my way. And mama told me, don't you mess with guys, I'd rather have you go and play with fire. Don't you let them have their way. Now I know you've got her honey and she calls you up at night, from far away across the plains and through long distance lines. And I'll be here by your side when you've got no one at night, because a look from you could have me running back again. I've had all the heartache that I can endure, and it picks me up and puts me down, then leaves me on the floor. And I hate to act a fool, honey, when you treat me like you do. Just a look from you could have me running back again. And a look from you could have me running back again. Just a look from you could have me running back again.
so that song was something I also wanted to mention was that song was recorded in Nashville, Tennessee, by a really great banjo player who works at the recording studio called 31 West Recording Studios. So I wanted to give them a quick shout out too, from what you just heard, and their wonderful work on that.
So where can people follow you? What is your online presence like? You obviously have a couple of Facebook pages, but
yeah, it's mostly just those for now. I'm
because
working.
it's your personal account, isn't it, on Facebook that you pretty much add everyone to, I think.
Yeah, that, and I try to filter them into my musician page. I have like a page for my music. It's called Maria Carrelli, and it's like the artist/band version of it. Since, as you mentioned before, I'm kind of in between bands, but still working up to like a full band under my name, it would be. I'm currently working on like a website and stuff like that to come. That'll come like after the music gets a little more established and going.
So we mentioned Jerry Springer, and I'm not sure if you remember, but at the end of his talk show, what he used to do after all the screaming and shouting, the whole episode, he would end with a final thought. Which was a nice positive message, just to end the show. And I thought I might borrow this idea for this show.
Yeah.
Would you like to think of a nice positive final thought?
There are no positive thoughts. I'm just kidding.
Everything sucks.
Kind of what I said before about doing what you love in life and being an inspiration to people. And I know it sounds kind of cheesy, but something to take away from this and other stuff that inspires you. I just want to encourage people out there to do the stuff that they love, and just like be good to others while doing so. And just like making yourself happy so that you can make others happy.
Sorry to put you on the spot there.
No, it's good. It's good. I wish I was a little more like articulate, but
my final thought for the podcast is it's just going to be a quote from a film. You may have heard of this film. It's Bill and Ted's Most Excellent Adventure. Have you seen that film?
I'll have to go watch it.
So it's just be excellent to each other. That's it.
I love it. It's perfect.
Thank you to my guest, Maria Corelli. Please like and share the show on Facebook, facebook.com, localdistortionpodcast, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. I need over 100 subscribers to get my own URL. So keep subscribing, keep liking the videos. And yeah. That's the end. Thank you very much.
Thanks for having me, Dan. This is great. Thanks to everyone out there for listening.
And I'm still really new at this, so if people are thinking, what is this guy doing?
No, it's awesome. It's awesome what you're doing. This is great, really.
I would like to say quickly, if there's any up and coming artists or bands listening or that someone knows, drop me a message on my Facebook page, because I'm always looking for future guests for the show. And yeah, I love to have anyone. I'm not bothered what genre of music or anything, just anyone who's up for it.
Right
come on
on
the show.